Welcome, kindred. It is Jessica with the new moon reading for the moon in Gemini, which is falling on the 6th of June. I'm super excited for this moon. It has got some really kind of powerful signatures. There's a whole stellium in in Gemini alongside, along with this new moon. So yeah, in this video, I'm going to explain a little bit about the energy for this specific new moon in Gemini. I've also made a free guide for the Gemini new moon, which is a more kind of general new moon in Gemini guide, but it does have a breakdown of all of the rising signs as well, so you can look up your particular sign to see where in your chart this moon is hitting for you. So if you think that'll be useful, it's completely free. I'll leave the link in the description box for that as well. It's something I trialed out in the last moon cycle and lots of people downloaded it and enjoyed it. So yeah, so I'm hoping that will be useful for you. But in this video, we're going to talk about the new moon in Gemini, what is going on astrologically, how we're likely to feel that in ourselves. Like I said, this is a very potent new moon. It is happening, it's got a rare aspect to it, which is what I want to kind of lean into in this video. I'm also going to talk a little bit about what happened with in the last new moon video. I pulled this card from the folk oracle, from the Universal Folk Oracle by Anita Inverarity, which was the card 13, Hidden. And we've been working with this kind of hidden energy, which was so, for me, we've still got, it's Saturdays, I'm filming this now, and the moon is until Thursday next week. So there's still quite a few days left of this waning part of the cycle. But I've been finding that this idea of hidden, there's been in the Taurus moon cycle that we're moving towards the end of now, there has been a lot of like uncovering. And if you've been feeling, I've noticed a lot of people around me have been facing some kind of shadowy stuff, things about themselves or about people they love, people around them, perhaps people they work with as well. Everything that's like relational, because the Taurus moon is a Venus ruled moon. So anything that's kind of relational, there's been lots of hidden things coming to light over this moon cycle, and that's kind of challenging in lots of ways. I think it's definitely linked in with Pluto being in Aquarius as well, and all of the Taurus stuff was kind of like squaring that. And now in our Gemini moon, we've got all the stuff trining it. So what I'm thinking with this new moon cycle is that it's going to be an easier moon cycle. June in general looks like quite a nice month astrologically. I've done a whole forecast for June as well. I did a written forecast and a video forecast as well. So I'll link those both down below as well if you're interested in that. This moon is going to help us to take that Taurus moon work that we've been doing of uncovering that shadow stuff and allow us to follow the threads of that to unravel mysteries and hidden things even further, and allow us to get kind of even more clarity around it, especially as far as communication with ourselves. It's going to be a really potent new moon and whole moon cycle for communication with ourselves. And communication with other people as well. Like the Mercury is at home in Gemini, so that's good for communication. It can be like a lot of communication. Sometimes we're very busy and toing and froing and things like that, which can kind of make it a little bit harder sometimes to get that kind of quiet space that we need to focus. But it's funny, like a fly just flew in then when I was saying that about finding it hard to focus, and it's like kind of hitting itself against the window. And sometimes it can feel like that, can't it? Like when there's so much to and fro and energy going on, it's like, and you don't, you need to kind of quiet that buzz to be able to tune in as well. I talked about that a lot as well in the Moon Day Magic Mail. If you're signed up for that, it's just a free email I send out every Monday, which has got like a forecast for the week and like practical insights on how to work with that. And I put a Gemini survival guide in last week's because it had Gemini can be a kind of frantic season in lots of ways, and so you kind of almost have to schedule in downtime as well, to kind of counteract some of that buzzy stuff that's going on. And especially so if you do want to be doing this deep work, and like I assume if you're watching this video, you do want to be doing the deep work. That is why we're here. This is why we tune ourselves into the cycles. We understand as kindreds that we are not just like islands. doing our own thing, and what we do is completely unrelated to the people around us, the environment around us. No, you know, we are part of an animate world. We are woven in, and everything that we do, even when it seems to be unrelated to everything else, it really does make a big difference. And I find that really, really comforting. I know sometimes people find that a little bit like disempowering sometimes, because like the rhetoric that we've been sold is that we are like these individuals and we carve our own way in the world. And like, while we do definitely have will, and we are able to find our own ways in the world for sure, understanding that we're actually like a part of a whole mycelial network of organisms, you know, physical organisms, but also like non-physical spirits as well. That is just so much more empowering to me. And it's also kind of a relief as well, you know, it's like, it's not all on us, all of the things. And that gives me a lot of comfort when we're in a world which there is obviously lots of terrible things happening. You know, in the news at the moment, there are constant reports of awful atrocities happening in the name of politics, really, you know, and I suppose perhaps religion, you could say. And it feel like it, I don't know how you feel about it, but it makes me feel quite powerless and helpless sometimes. And then when I kind of sink back into that, knowing that we are all connected, and yes, in a kind of tangible way, perhaps it seems impossible that me like lighting a candle or sending a prayer does nothing. But actually, I know, I believe, I feel like I know that it does do something. So if you've been feeling similarly hopeless, then I hope that that is reassuring for you as well, that you know that we're all connected. And obviously we do tangible things as well. You know, we send money, we do the things that we can do as well. But yeah, kind of an aside. But part of this like unraveling, part of this working with the hidden, in the June forecast, I talked about how one of the possible keywords for June is kind of like a schism, like a split. There's definitely splits happening now. It's like splinters, cracks are happening. And I think, is it Leonard Cohen who said that the cracks, your heart needs to crack open in order to let the light in? And I think that's a good way of thinking about it. I think that's a useful way of thinking about it. So yeah, it's been really interesting. Like I said, we've still got quite a few days left. We've got the darkest part of the cycle now, you know, to go, working with this kind of uncovering Taurus, Venus energy. And then we're going to step into that Mercury, Gemini energy, and we're going to follow the thread. The kind of phrase that I thought of when thinking about this new moon is follow the white rabbit. You know, it's that idea of Gemini is all about curiosity and exploring, like perhaps not in a grand sense like Sagittarius, like the opposite sign. You know, Sagittarius is very much about, like when I talked about in the full moon, for the members, we were talking about how like Sagittarius is like a kind of truth seeking and kind of grand understandings kind of thing. Gemini is more about the kind of smaller curiosities, but actually I find Gemini to be a very everyday magical sign, because Gemini is always curious, always kind of excited. It's always got a kind of like childlike passion for the world about it. You know, if you've got a healthy Gemini, a Gemini who is in their kind of light side of the sign, then they are curious, they are passionate. People often think about them as being kind of younger. They often come across as younger than they are, because it's like, oh, look at this and look at this, and I learned this about this, and then it sent me down this. And that is what I'm saying about the white rabbit, is that it's like following it down that rabbit hole. And we, you know, like from Alice in Wonderland, it's like we go down the rabbit hole and then we fall into a world curiouser and curiouser, where magic is real and stories can heal us all. That used to be my Instagram, like little bio thing. It's very, very Gemini to be following those threads, following those rabbit holes. And like people often say, don't they, oh yeah, down the rabbit hole I go, kind of thing. And those rabbit hole seemingly side quests, you know, seemingly distractions. Gemini's like, I've got a lot of stuff in Gemini, and I'm always kind of interrupting myself, and then I hopefully do circle back round to the point. And Geminis are kind of berated for that, for kind of going off the point and then maybe like talking about something else, and never actually like getting deep on stuff. But there's something to be said about branching. It's that kind of mycelial network as well. You know, it's like this thing, I learned this thing, and then that made me realize this, and then I learned this thing, and I went off like that, and then I went off like that. And while that doesn't look like a very kind of productive linear path, you know, it's like I start here, I go here, shoom, you know, that's the most efficient, productive way to do it. Gemini is not about being efficient and productive. It's about the side quests. It's about the getting from here perhaps to here, but like Geminis aren't even concerned about there. They're following their curiosity. They're following the next exciting thing, going down the next rabbit hole. And that is what, like, if you want to lean into the energy of this new moon, that is what we do. We allow ourselves, because like, oh my gosh, you know, there's so much trying to stop us from doing that. Like every time I go on YouTube, it's like, stop procrastinating, you know, it's like the videos that come up like end procrastination now, you know, techniques to get you focused and on target and all this sort of stuff. And it's just like, yes, there's definitely a time and place for things like that. And yes, I do procrastinate, and yes, I do get sidetracked, but I have found the most delicious, nourishing things through those side quests, through those distractions. So what I want to do, I want to encourage you in this moon cycle to follow, be really like aware and open to distractions, to side quests, to following your interests, following your curiosity. Where is it going to take you? And yes, there is no predictable ending. There's no predictable outcome. I can't promise that you're going to find enlightenment or you're going to find the thing that you're looking for. Well, no, I think I can promise that you'll find the thing that you're looking for. I don't know. What you probably will find is the thing you thought you were looking for is not the thing that you need. Yeah. Yeah. So I've kind of gone off a little bit about, you know, in a true Gemini fashion, talking about the whole kind of vibe of this Gemini moon. Let's talk a little bit about the details now. Let's kind of zoom in more to the details. So this is the lunation chart in my honeycomb planner. To cast a lunation chart, all you need to do is cast a chart on any kind of chart generating software. I like Astro.com. There's also AstroSeek, which is really good. There's loads and loads and loads of them, and you just put in the exact time of the new moon for you where you are. So you put the time and the place of the new moon for where you are. So for me, that is happening, I'm in Wales in the UK, so it's happening at 1:37 p.m. So this is just the chart. So it's like a birth chart. It is a birth chart. It's a birth chart for this moon cycle, and that is why I like to work from moon cycle to moon cycle. This birth chart is going to last me all, you know, this is the birth of the moon, the blueprint for the moon that takes me all the way to the 5th of July to the new moon in Cancer. That is why it's not just like a snapshot for this day. So like when I see videos about kind of like working with the energy of the new moon, not everyone, but some people are just talking about like, oh, the couple of days around the new moon. No, it's like, for me, it is something that stretches over the whole moon cycle. So we work with this chart and really almost like until we get to the next new moon in Gemini. So a whole year, you know, you can track them like that as well. But yeah, that's another side quest. Getting a little bit more off track. So if you want to cast the chart for where you are, you can do that. Depending on where you are, the signs will be shifted around slightly, but the placements will all be exactly the same. So if you look for where Gemini is in your version, you don't need to do this at all, because I'm going to explain what this all means anyway. And I've already given you a lot of the information about what the feel and the kind of how we work with the energy of this moon, but there will be more on that too. So let's have a look at this Gemini. We have got, so let's talk about these two first. We've got Jupiter that has recently moved into Gemini. So Jupiter's been in Taurus for a year now and has passed over now into Gemini and is at 2 degrees of Gemini. So that's a big deal, because Jupiter takes like, it spends almost like about a year roughly in each sign. So Jupiter is going to be in Gemini for a whole year now. And Jupiter, when it goes into a sign, tends to expand the qualities of that sign. It also often brings blessings, boons. I think I talked about that in the last moon cycle when we were talking about Jupiter as well. And so Jupiter is blessing our distractions, blessing our side quests now, probably amplifying them too as well. So you might find you've got even more distractions and side quests and curiosity and all that kind of stuff now that Jupiter's in Gemini. Interestingly, and I definitely talked about this in the June forecast, Jupiter is in detriment in Gemini, when we talk about that in terms of traditional astrology. That is because Jupiter rules the sign of Sagittarius, which is the opposite sign to Gemini. So Jupiter is at home in Sagittarius, and so Gemini is kind of like the furthest away from home that it can be, which is why it's said to be in detriment in Gemini. But what I find with Jupiter is it doesn't Jupiter in Gemini doesn't feel bad to me somehow. You can see what you think about that. Perhaps it's also like because my sun is there as well, so when Jupiter comes to your sun, inevitably you do get a kind of boost in some ways. But like I said, Jupiter can amplify the distractions. It can also like amplify the kind of Gemini stuff that is generally to do with more social engagements and things like that as well. So that's something just to watch out for if you know that you need downtime, that for a whole year now Jupiter is going to be amplifying this Gemini kind of connect, socialize kind of stuff. So it might be something you just need to kind of find that balance for yourself. Like I said, Jupiter is at home in Sagittarius because it wants to have those like kind of big quests. It doesn't want lots of like mini interesting side quests. It's not falling down rabbit holes or reading children's literature. It is, like Alice in Wonderland, children's literature. It is more about like kind of grand life quests, It's talking about the arc of your whole life, which is why Jupiter is kind of like, it's almost like kind of playing it small, it might feel like, in Gemini. But I think that's actually a really interesting maybe that's another reason why I like it as well. Like I talk a lot about everyday magic. I'm much more interested in the kind of everyday connections that we as humans have with everything around us, with the natural world, with the spirit world, which is the same thing, than I am about like kind of big ceremony and stuff like that. The Jupiter in Sag is much more like organized religion, big ceremony kind of stuff, So I think bringing that Jupiter energy into Gemini boosts that everyday magic signal as well. So yeah, that's interesting. We've also got Mercury here, like I said, at home in Gemini. So that's bringing extra mercurial Gemini. It's almost like doubling up on that Gemini mercurial energy. So, even more chatty, even more insights, even more messages, even more communication. And because like Mercury delivers, that was Mercury's function as a god, is delivering messages from this person to this person, and quickly, but also sometimes getting on side quests as well, so that may be an interesting archetype to look into as well for inspiration in this Gemini moon season. And then we have got something very interesting and quite rare happening. So at the new moon, we always have the sun and moon together. That is what a new moon means. It's when the moon gets born again from the sun does it get born again from the sun? I don't know. I sometimes say like the sun kind of swallows the moon, and then the moon gets reborn. That's how it seems to us, because the moon seems to disappear from the sky. But yeah, there's a coming together of those two energies, and then the moon moves on and starts to move further and further away from the sun until when we get to the full moon, they're opposite each other. So that always happens at a new moon, the sun and the moon together, and it's always a reset point, and it's always a reset point in that part of our charts. So like, if that's why I made the guide, so that you can look up the guide and see like, okay, which house is this happening in for me, because that will tell you more about what this means for you. But it's a reset for all Gemini type stuff as well, so it's a reset for all of us, for like communication. It's a reset for our kind of doings and comings and goings in our local area. It's a reset for our kind of like socializing with the people that we speak to every day. It can also be like social media. I'm finding more and more that third house stuff, so that kind of Gemini kind of general stuff. But what is unusual about this new moon is that we also have, Frodo's chasing the fly now that I was talking about earlier, we also have Venus right here in with the sun and the moon. So instead of the sun and the moon meeting up and the sun swallowing the moon and the moon comes out, we have the moon and Venus in the heart of the sun. So when other planets other than the moon, I don't think they call it cazimi when it's the moon, but yes, other planets come and with the sun, come together with the sun, a conjunction with the sun, it's called cazimi, which is like in the heart of the sun. So Venus and the moon and the sun all together at that new moon point. Isn't that interesting? I just think, wow, what does that mean? What's the potential of that, you know? And Venus, we've already been working with that Venus energy in that Taurus moon cycle. It's very much about the body, about the senses. It is about relationship, connections. It is about desire sometimes. When I talked about it in the context of the particular Taurus moon that's gone past, I said it was about like love, sex and money because it is about like the joy of kind of like procreation, of bringing two things together and creating a third thing. That's why the Empress is 3, you know. It's that idea of there being of abundance coming from, you know, 2 plus 2 makes 3. It's got that multiplying quality to it, which is why that Venus is a benefic as well, like Jupiter. So both benefics as well in the same sign. So it's just so blessed at the moment in that Gemini part of your chart, but it's also very busy, you know, so it's finding that balance. Venus is not just about love for other people as well. It's about our own self-worth, you know. It's about our love for ourselves. It's about our kind of values and how we value ourselves. And that has been a lot of the work that we've been doing over that last moon cycle, especially with this card that came out for us. So I'm really seeing this moon cycle as almost like a continuation. It's been so interesting how that's been happening this year. Since we had those eclipses back in Aries in March, we're kind of almost on like a grand quest. Normally, like, well, I say normally, there have been periods of time when it's been like this a bit before, but always we can kind of layer things on top of each other for sure as our practices kind of build up as we go. But quite often it seems to be a little bit more like disjointed than that. Like we'll spend a little bit of time working on this particular area, then we'll spend a little bit of time working on this little area. But the way that things are kind of panning out, and the way the general kind of pattern of the astrology is at the moment, is that we are kind of really focused on what, you know, we really focused on Aries, and now we're all really focused on Taurus, and now we're all really focused on Gemini. And like obviously that happens as the moon, we have the new moon in each of those signs, but because all the other planets are there, have been there as well, it's like doubling down on that. So it seems like we're kind of collectively going through this shift pattern, which is helping us to even more than usual kind of build on the work that we've been doing. So you know, if you've been feeling it like you've uncovered some stuff and maybe that's been uncomfortable, you know, we have got this Pluto, like I said, it was squaring all the stuff that was happening with the new moon last time, but this time it is trine, and a trine is a much more kind of easy flowing influence, and so I feel like it's going to give us much more opportunity to move forward, move quickly as well, perhaps with our explorations of ourselves. And then next month, when we get to the Cancer moon, Cancer is much more about that kind of nurturing. I feel like that's where the healing is going to come when we get to that Cancer moon next time. So probably we won't be doing like deep healing work as our main focus while we're having this Gemini moon. I think it's still going to be more about the uncovering, about the kind of unraveling, the following the white rabbit. It's like we've discovered that we've got wounds in that Taurus cycle, and now in this Gemini cycle we're going to kind of learn more about, you know, because it's heady, it's air, you know, it's mutable air. We're going to learn more, we're going to use our intellect to help us to find the threads, tease out the threads, like, well, why is that like that, and what, you know, how does that relate to this thing, you know? And we do this kind of investigation, but in a kind of playful, curious way. Like we're not going to make a grand plan of how we're going to investigate it. We're just going to kind of let things show themselves, let things reveal themselves as we follow that white rabbit. And it's so funny as well, because in the Moonwise Goddesses, which is my membership here on YouTube, we are working with, this is the card that came out, the goddess that came out for us. We work from full moon to full moon in the membership, and it's got a white, like it's a hare technically, but I was like, oh, there's a white rabbit in our card, you know. There's so many synchronicities, and that's one of the things I love about astrology, is like it kind of is like a map that shows us how all these things. A woodpecker has literally just landed on not even on a tree stump, on a telegraph pole outside while I'm talking about this. Talk about side quests, talk about interruptions. That's the kind of threads. I think that's why that came there then. To remind me, to remind you to follow those kind of things. Like if you see something unusual, what does that mean? You know, be curious, look that up, and don't try to like have a plan of how it's all going to unfold. Just allow yourself the curiosity and the luxury of following those threads, and don't be like, well, why are you interested in that? That makes no sense, you know, because it will kind of reveal itself. And like I said, when we get to the end of this, when we get to that Cancer moon next time, I feel like there's going to be more opportunities then to start healing some of this stuff. But before we do that kind of deep emotional healing, we need to bring some more information. You know, we want to gather some more information. We want to pull on some threads, and it might seem random, but that is kind of where we are going with it. So I talked about all of these planets here. I've talked a little bit about Pluto in Aquarius. I feel like I've been talking about this a lot because this has been like a big shift that has happened at the start of the year, and it's going to be a very long transit that's been going on, you know, for several years. Most of the other things are kind of the same as how things have been. Mars is still in Aries at the moment. It will be crossing over into Taurus in this moon cycle, which is going to give us like a kind of a shift in gears again, but isn't super like linking up very super closely with the rest of this. The nodes are like the North Node is giving us a little bit of a boost with a sextile to this moon as well, allowing more energy for us, allowing more like insight for us to come in. It's going to be a really good moon for doing like divination. It's going to be a really good moon cycle, you know, a whole moon for, like I say, following those threads and gathering information about stuff that's going to help us to become unstuck from situations that maybe we've been stuck in for a really long time, you know. We have this stuff coming available for us now. We've got Uranus in Taurus. Again, that has been a very, very long running transit. And all of these planets crossed past Taurus. Well, they did. They went through Taurus, but they've also gone over Uranus before coming into Gemini. So they've all got that kind of slightly like chaotic almost, you know, like possibility energy as they've all crossed over into Gemini as well. So they're a little bit like kind of shaken up, almost like Uranus has got that kind of electrical quality to it, so it's almost like they're a little bit electrified, you know, all of the planets moving in here, so they've got a more buzz again, like that kind of word buzz keeps coming out as well. And like I said, the only kind of caveat with all of this is to schedule yourself some downtime as well, because otherwise I think it can be kind of like a bit of too much head work and not enough grounding, not enough anchoring and rest as well. You know, I've seen a lot of people pulling Four of Swords a lot, you know. We need to make sure we're allowing ourselves time to do that, because our bodies need that to be able to assimilate. Our bodies and our minds need that to be able to assimilate this information. Otherwise we're just going to gather, and we may as well just like throw it all in the wind because we can't assimilate it. So we need to have that time as well to kind of digest that we're doing. Yeah. So okay, so I've pulled out, gosh, that fly is now literally on my desk. I think it must be dying because it's trying to get involved in the situation. I do not want that. Buzz, distraction again. So this is what we had last time. I pulled out the Secrets of the Mystic Grove, which is a deck I actually really like. It's a bit of a strange deck in some ways. It's an oracle. I wanted to pull one from here for our new cycle, and I haven't quite often with these forecasts as I pull the card in advance because I want to kind of be prepared to talk to you about it, but I didn't feel like doing that this time with this Gemini influence. So we're going to do it together here and now and take one of these cards, and I'll read you the book description for it as well, and we'll see how it kind of ties in with the work that we are doing and with this Gemini moon cycle that we are about to enter. Let me know how you feel about that. I know I have lots of Geminis who follow me, probably because, you know, we recognize that Gemini energy in each other. We kind of get attracted to it. We want to find our twins. We want to find our kindreds. And not just Gemini sun, sometimes Gemini risings and people with just like prominence in Gemini or air signs in general, to be honest, in their charts as well. I think also because kind of what helps too is that I have obviously got those Gemini influences personally, but I've also got strong earth and water in my chart as well. So I think I find that like for some people I'm quite a soothing presence as well. So we've got that kind of fun contrast of the kind of Gemini stuff with the more soothing earth and water coming through as well. which for a long time, well, as a child, I kind of fought against that a little bit. I was like, oh, I just want to lean into all the air and do all the kind of imagination and thinky stuff, and didn't really like pay attention to my body so much at all. But then later on in life, I've definitely been appreciating and coming into the more earth and water stuff. Grown into my Taurus moon. Anyway, I'm rambling about myself. Let's take a card for all of us for this Gemini season. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's really interesting straight away, given that, look at this. The keyword is exactly the same. So, and the numbers if we add. So, like I said, for the Moonwise Goddesses, this is the card that came out for the moon cycle that we're working in now. So we're working with the goddess Shang-O, Shang-A, depending on, there's a couple of different spellings of her name. And it's from Kim, oh, have I got that handy to show you? No, I don't think I have. It's from the Goddess Tarot by Kim Wilder. And I pulled out all of the majors. So I just shuffled the majors and used those to draw the card. And it's card 9, the Hermit. And the keyword is contemplation on this card. So we're already working with this. And I think that's a really interesting kind of juxtaposition to this Gemini go, busy, busy, let's follow the threads kind of energy. We do need this time for kind of contemplation. And Shang-O's story, she gets she goes to the moon, and she ends up on the moon with no company apart from this white rabbit. So it's like a kind of withdrawal from the world, which is very kind of opposite seeming to the Gemini stuff. Do you see what I mean? So we've got that kind of juxtaposition there. And then this card comes out in our here now in the new moon reading, and the keyword is contemplation, exactly the same. And it's 36, which if we add 3 and 6 together, we get 9. So we've got a hermit. So we've got like double hermits going on here. Really, really interesting. It's also giving me strength card vibes straight away as well. Like, yes, it's not a lion, it's a tiger. But we've got like a maiden and a tiger, you know, maiden and a big cat, like we have in the strength card. And they seem to be in some kind of like, almost kind of like mirroring each other in their poses as well. Like they look quite relaxed together. We are in a strength year at the moment. You know, collectively, 2024 is a strength year for all of us. We are all working with those ideas of like kind of uniting the parts of ourselves, the kind of like the will and the drive parts of ourselves, and the more kind of let it be easy, peaceful, divine feminine, let's say, parts of ourselves, even though that's kind of tricky to, I don't like that kind of feminine masculine dichotomy binary that we get set up, but in some ways it just makes sense to explain it. If we didn't have all of patriarchy's baggage along with it, I probably would be fine with it. So we're all working with that strength energy. We're all looking for our hearts this year. We're all looking for what kind of brings us joy. What is our kind of core self? And who are we? And kind of, we're all kind of finding out more about trust in this strength year as well. And so, yeah, I feel like this month is going to be really, if we can follow those threads, we do this Gemini work, we're going to be really able to deepen into that. But we do need to allow this time for contemplation. So the other words on the card are reflections, rumination, which is kind of like, sometimes we can get stuck as well, can't we? And that is one of the kind of shadow aspects of the Hermit card as well. It's like when we kind of withdraw and don't ever come back, you know, we withdraw and for protection. And it's no longer actually like a spiritual awakening. It's actually like a kind of almost like a prison in some ways, you know, it can be. In the Santa Muerte Tarot, the Hermit card, I believe, is it the Hermit card? I think so. Or maybe it's... I think the Hermit card is like a coffin, like a sealed up coffin. And so it's that kind of time of taking away from everything, you know, and contemplating, which is what we do need. But we also mustn't get kind of stuck in that state as well. And so we need to come out and do the Gemini things. We need to be able to interact with other people, with spirits, with the world around us as well, to be able to do this kind of back and forth. And I think this has got that kind of strength, that polarity on the strength card. I know it's not the strength card, but, you know, hopefully you can see why I'm saying that. It's got that kind of double polarity kind of feel to it. Let's have a look what Arwen's written in the book for this one. Okay. The lady and the tiger are both taking some time to ponder life's many questions. Nasturtiums surround them, creating a bed for their quiet musings. I love nasturtiums as well. They literally go crazy. I've had to take them out of the garden because they just go everywhere. It could be that she has dreamt the tiger into being, or perhaps the tiger has dreamt her. What would it be like for them to trade places? The tiger and the woman gaze at each other, contemplating what the other may be thinking. And that sometimes we get into rumination with that as well. And also, I think, kind of links up that the description of that links up very much to Gemini, like the idea of the twins, you know, of these two, that we can be one, we can be the other one, you know, that we are not just like one person. We contain multitudes. What would it be like for them to trade places? The tiger and the woman gaze at each other, contemplating what the other may be thinking. This card brings you necessary time to reflect. Don't make any sudden decisions until you've really contemplated all the possibilities. You may need to pull yourself out of your current headspace. Try to see the situation from all sides. This is a time that calls for careful consideration before any decisions are made. Musing on the what-ifs can bring a necessary breakthrough for you. So that's interesting, because sometimes we shouldn't think about the what ifs. It's like, oh, it's gone now. We need to kind of just put it behind us and move on. But perhaps some of this Gemini exploration is going to take us into what ifs. Like, what if I had chosen this instead? And as long as we don't get stuck in that kind of rumination circle, and we're actually like getting new insights, like we can tell that usually, can't we? Like whether we're just thinking ourselves in a circle or whether we are thinking ourselves like, let me get a piece of paper. I want to do a quick doodle. So, you know, like when we're stuck in rumination, our thoughts normally look like, oh, yes, this, and then I remember this, and then I go here, and I remember this, and I go here, and I think about this, and then I go here, and we end up back where we started. Whereas this Gemini path is like we start here, and then we go, oh, that's interesting, so we go up there, and then we find out something that's interesting, so we go here, but we've also found something else that's interesting, so we go here as well, and then from here, we kind of go here, and we're like, oh, and that, you know, and this, and we're branching, you know, we're branching out like this all the time. And then we're going to get this like really beautiful like tree or a mycelial network, however you want to kind of envision that. It's much more expansive. It takes us to different places. Like rather than just taking us back to the end goal, it's taken us like to all these different places all the way around here. And they're all linked, you know, they're all still linked. They're all linked by us. So yeah, there really is a lot of potential for breakthrough, as I think breakthrough is a really good word for it. She's also got some prompts that you might want to consider as well with this. What are all the pieces of the current puzzle? That's funny. Puzzle itself has been coming up as something a lot for me as well at the moment. Puzzle pieces. Where is my best place for quiet contemplation? What would you do if you could trade places with someone? Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so contemplation. Yeah, how does that sit with you? What do you think? How are you feeling about this new moon? Let me know your thoughts. And members, how can you believe that? I can, because I keep seeing it again and again. And like people say that this stuff, you know, it's like, wow, there are so many synchronicities that I find it really mad that people are like, this stuff is not real, because it is real. Is real. Thank you so much for watching. Warmest blessings, and I will see you very soon.